Yes.
We're on.
Okay, you can start the weather talk. Put this away.
Good evening and welcome to the June 17th, 2026 Yarmouth Planning Board meeting. I am Joanne Crowley, Chair. The public is welcome to attend in person this evening or via alternative public access provided on the notice of meeting available on the Town of Yarmouth website. I'd like to call roll call now. Susan Britta.
Present.
Deirdre Gaquin. Tom Pendleton.
Present.
Will Rubenstein.
Here.
Peter Slovak. Ken Smith.
Here.
Joanne Crowley, present. Seeing that we have a quorum present, I will now call the meeting to order, and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. First item on our agenda this evening is the Old Main Street replanting plan. I believe Amanda Lima is here to join us, and from the Department of Public Works, to review plans for tree replacement and the stormwater retrofit on Old Main Street. In our packets this evening are the following documents: the June 5th invitation to abutters along Main Street, the May 30th decision that we made, 2024, the scenic road decision, a locus map showing trees removed, and the replanting plan prepared by Horsley Witten. So I'll turn it over to Kathy if you want to run through your planner notes, and then maybe we'll run it by you, Amanda, and you can walk us through what we're looking at this evening. Thank you.
Yes, certainly. I'm sure you may all remember back to May of 2024, the town of Yarmouth, DPW came before us along with the tree warden, asking to remove 10 trees along Old Main Street that were impacting their ability to install the sewer line. Mostly ashes, I believe they were, and ultimately the board decided that it would be acceptable to remove them, but they wanted to have a replanting plan at least 1-to-1, and then to come back within 2 years and present that planting plan to the planning board, as well as to invite neighbors from the Old Main Street area in order to see the presentation of the actual finalized or closely finalized planting plan. Because they had some ideas at the time back in 2024, but I think they finalized it now. I guess I would hand it over to Amanda and she can kind of go through a little bit more detail.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Amanda. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Amanda Lima, I'm the town engineer. And I'm going to take just a big picture. I know I'm here for the replanting as part of the sewer work, but just to kind of look at all of Old Main Street. In 2023, we got a grant and was working with APCC and Horsley Witten to look at improving stormwater. As part of that, we had a bunch of different conceptual designs in which two of them broke up Old Main into two different watersheds. One watershed is about 26 acres, and that's to the east, and then to the west is 33 acres. So the project here tonight, because it's nice to pursue grants and to get this funding for construction, this one is currently under design and is being funded by the Massachusetts Office of Coastal Zone Management for a grant for coastal habitat and water quality. So the west side of Old Main discharges to Bass River. So our intent is to improve the water quality by replacing the trees as part of the sewer work. We're also going to be directing the stormwater runoff to help water the trees and also do the nutrient uptake, to reduce the nutrients that are going to Bass River. So there's a bigger picture. Again, this part is just the west side. So in the future, we're going to be doing the east side. The cost estimate for the work that was provided in your packet is over $500,000, which will be hopefully funded. We've submitted a grant this spring, and we'll find out by the end of summer. But it's for $500,000 to do these tree trenches, what we call it. We redirect the catch basin runoff into a perforated pipe, and it allows the tree, to be able to grow and to provide that the nutrients to the tree. So. So again, so we're kind of focusing on, so when you're looking at the ratios, what we're proposing tonight is 14 trees for the 10 that we did take down. However, the 14 trees are only within the area that we took down 6 of the 10 trees. The remaining 4 will be part of a future stormwater project on Old Main. So just to kind of understand kind of where you're at, because it's a very large stretch of roadway. So we're gonna, even though we've got the sewer in there, we're gonna be continuing to improve the stormwater quality, and that's really DPW's goal for that. And then within the packet, I wasn't able to have our consultant or the tree warden here, so I do apologize when it comes to specific trees. We're working with Eversource and the different arborists to have here, and I don't know if oh, there you go, perfect. The 5 different trees that our consultant, Horsley Witten, had selected, 2 of them are on, all 5 are all native, 2 of them are on the Eversource, which the first one is this serviceberry, and then the second slide is on the Eversource approved list, is this one here, this Eastern Rosebud. Those 2 are the ones that are native, which is one of the requirements, and also approved by Eversource. So the other 3 I've submitted to Eversource to see if they would consider. It is good to, diversify the trees. I kind of would like, if there's certain feedback, if we just go with the 2 species, or if you'd like to see all 5, I think that would be good feedback to hear tonight. Right now, we're currently in 75% design drawings that have been submitted by the consultant, and we'll be working on if we are selected for the grant, which we'll find out at the end of the summer, we'll get through 100%. We don't need to permit it because we're not near any wetlands, and then we would put it out to bid over the winter, and then for a spring 2027 construction window. I think that summarizes.
I would just point out that all of these trees would be underneath overhead utility lines, so it's really important that Eversource is good with that. And I know we had also talked about maybe locating some of the trees on the south side, but there's a gas main that was mapped in when they did their survey that kind of prohibits them from putting that on any new trees on the south side.
Thank you, Kathy.
Questions from the board? Ms. Britta?
Just a couple of technical, what divides east and west? You said this is the west portion. What is the street that divides east and west?
I have the schematics. Let's see. It's about 1, 2, 3. It's 4 parcels to the west of Crosby Street.
Crosby?
For us, it's how you delineate the watersheds. That's
Okay.
why they're 2 separate.
So that's where you took the, okay.
Right. Yeah.
And then one other, does the utility have a preference on the trees, or do they just don't care as long as it's?
For the Eversource, the first 2 listed are the ones that Eversource has already on their pre-approved list. Our consultant had came up with a few extras, but then upon review with Kathy, some of them might still end up being too tall. So I did send them to Eversource to see if they would provide feedback, but if I had to guess, they probably are gonna end up sticking with their approved list, the first 2 that you saw on the screen.
And I assume that's the 20-foot and under one. They want to keep them under, okay. And watering those trees, is there an irrigation system in there that who's gonna be in charge of watering these trees once they get planted?
God.
So usually, so the contractors are responsible for providing establishment. So whether that's a watering bag, usually it's that first year is really
Right.
important. But the nice part of this is that we're redirecting the catch basin flow. So every time it does rain, it will go right to the trees first.
Good, awesome.
And then whatever, if it reaches its capacity, it would overflow and then go back into the existing drainage that's
Anyway,
already
okay.
on the roadway.
That's it. Thank you, Joanne.
Anyone else? Mr. Pendleton?
I have a couple
If you could, your mic.
Yeah, hello. Just a couple of quick questions. How close to the road will these be, and how close will these be to any cross streets? So my concern a little bit is just, for example, this magnolia, coming out of a side street or a driveway, it's very low to the ground. Your sight lines aren't going to be very good. So I'm just wondering how, will sight lines be protected? So drivers, we all know, we're getting older. We don't see very well coming out.
When Kathy and I were discussing it, the last two, The last three, basically, I have a feeling that Eversource won't end up
Okay.
approving it. But yeah, so we look for making sure that you can see at least, 3.5 feet and up. So
Okay.
we wouldn't be blocking site
Okay.
distances. But it is in between. We're gonna be disturbing the area from the road edge to the back of the sidewalk. So in
Correct.
every area, we're removing that whole area and putting in basically like a stone bed and the perforated pipe. And then we're rebuilding the sidewalk and putting the tree in between that space.
Kathy, can you show which two trees again? I'm sorry, that, because there's 5 different ones I'm looking at in this packet.
Sorry.
Serviceberry,
First two. First two.
it's the page with the, this
Service
last page.
berry and the eastern red berry, red bud.
Service.
Oh,
They
okay.
happen to be the last two in the packet.
In the
that we have
packet,
in our
yeah.
hands.
Yeah, this
So
one, yeah.
That's why we're trying to
Yeah, 'cause
be
I
on
was
the
just,
same page.
I was trying to just figure out from a height standpoint.
No, I appreciate
Because some of the
that.
taller ones, I'm just concerned that they're gonna get like the trees that were there that get all hacked up once they grow up into the line, so.
So these are mature height of 15 to 20.
Right.
And the next one is 20 to 30.
Amanda, what's the schedule of this work
It would be next spring, if
Spring
we
of-
are selected for the grant.
of 27?
Right.
What's the backup plan if you're not selected for the grant?
As of right now, we've been funded continuously. There is no guarantee, but we've made a really good progress on our other projects. So we are a good candidate, but there is no guarantee. But if we weren't selected, they did change the way that the grants are submitted, in which they combined a bunch of grants called the Eco One Stop. So they combined a bunch of them all together. So, for example, we submitted on Packet Landing for that parking lot that was raised is within the same grouping as this project for stormwater. So there's different goals. We haven't heard back if they'll be selective, like, oh, we'll fund this part of your grant. They seem to want to have more flexibility on the state side, which is a little less favorable by the town who has their own initiatives and goals. So if we're not selected, then we would either have to figure out a way to try to reduce the scope or wait until we're can submit again.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, Mr.
Hi.
Rubenstein.
Thank you for being here. My first question has to do with, have we gotten any feedback from the neighbors, from the people who really are going to be the most affected, as opposed to us nice people who are doing
So-
our best?
Nate Wetton is my senior project manager.
Yeah.
He has reached out to the abutters that are in this western scope of work. He is out on medical, that's why he's not joining us, and he won't be back for a few more weeks. But we do have time. He had reached out. We heard back from one abutter that would like to have shrubs instead of trees, so we're gonna look into that. But he has reached out, and they did also refine the survey to make sure that we're not impacting private properties.
Okay, so it's an ongoing process, and a lot can happen between now and even after you get the grant. In other words, I have my opinions, and obviously we have I don't even want to use this word, governmental responsibility to do what we're doing as a planning board, but ultimately, a lot of what I'd like to see happen should be to make the neighbors happy, because they're the ones that are the most affected. So I guess what I'm asking is this an ongoing process with you, the tree warden, Nate, the neighbors, Kathy, Madam Chair? Is that just going to be an ongoing thing?
All my friends live on Old Main Street.
No. Well,
Yeah.
wow, it's a really big
We heard-
town.
we
It's a
can-
really big town.
Default area.
What about the rest of town, Madam Chair? Anyway.
Generally, yeah, it was
That's
favorable.
That's
We
the
had a
only place
lot
where
of-
they removed the trees.
We had a lot of good, technical questions that got asked. I kind of, pushed our consultant, and I know they responded to those. And Nate, does a fantastic job with the public outreach for the people who are directly
Okay.
affected. So.
So my last question has to do with, I've been thinking a lot about the fact that we're in a drought. And I'm not a weather person. I just play one on TV and at planning board meetings. And I noticed that the 2 trees that are on the Eversource list are not what I would call terribly drought tolerant, whereas the other ones are, most of the other ones. And I don't know what's going to happen. None of us do. But it doesn't feel like we're going to be getting back into the wet times anytime soon. So I'm just, slightly concerned, again, to the extent that I can and should be.
That was actually one of my questions. Are
Yeah.
all the new trees in a trench, they're all supported by the trench?
Right, correct.
Which I think is what Amanda had mentioned earlier, that there's going to be, when there is rain,
it'll
It
be.
will feed the trench, if I understand you correctly, Amanda.
Right, I'm just concerned.
If
there
there's
just
no rain.
We just don't seem to get rain here anymore, and it hasn't been just anymore. It's been for years. It's been at least 3 years, by the way I measure things, which is our pond at camp, and it's 20 feet down, and it's been that way for 3 years. So I love the fact that it is going to get recycled. I just wonder, and I assume there'll be more conversations with the neighbors about how to make sure these awesome trees get put in and then they survive. So it's sort of a strange thing for us to be a part of. Obviously, we have a reason to be a part of it, but at some level, some of the details I even feel weird about asking, just because ultimately it doesn't affect my front yard and my front driveway. But I would hope that those conversations would continue with the neighbors and with all of you as we continue to look to how to put the best long-term trees in. Because again, this was such a great list that you gave us, but it's hard not to notice that some of these, like the Virginiana, I'll just leave it at that, or the ironwood, good name, clearly has a high drought tolerance. Same thing with there was one other. The thornless cockspur hawthorn has an excellent drought tolerance, but neither of those are on the Eversource list. So maybe as you're continuing to look forward, if it's possible to find things that are on the Eversource list that just tend more towards they're going to do okay if we don't get the kind of rain that we clearly don't seem to get anymore. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The only thing I would point out is I think there's also a page in here that you have that shows the Eversource list. The only 2 that are native are those first 2 that we've been talking about.
Sure. And I get we're trying to balance a lot of interests, but anyway, thank you for your time, Ms. Lima. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions from the board? Any further deliberations for us? I mean, I'm looking at L9 and L10, Amanda, and those are the most important, I think, documents for us to understand. The stormwater retrofit is something that really doesn't come under our purview, but certainly the relocation of the trees and the replanting does. So as I understand it, all of the trees that we're thinking of now will be in a trench zone, so that the likelihood of them getting some water is better than not.
Correct, yes.
And they are all on the west side of Old Main Street.
Correct, yep.
Were there any removals on I can't remember, were there removals on the east side?
Yeah, there was 4.
And we are not replacing any of them right in this plan because of the natural gas line? Is that what I'm understanding?
No,
Oh,
this is just, so if you're looking at the whole total of the drainage area that contributes, it's over 50 acres. So it gets broken in half based on both outfall pipes that Old Main goes to get to Bass River. So this is focusing on the west side that has one outfall.
Okay.
And then eventually we'll be putting in a grant, but it will be at a later date, would be for the east side.
and do you have an estimate of how many trees on the east side? Mike?
Not at this time, no.
But there will be some?
Yeah, oh yeah, I mean, it'd be probably the similar density that you know, right now, when you're comparing the trees that we took out, we're replacing 14 to 6. So it'd probably be something to that order of magnitude on the other
And
side.
in terms of disruption, Old Main Street has been disrupted for years now. And I see that there are, again, I'm not an engineer, so I'm not going to be able to understand everything on these drawings, but what kind of disruption and traffic diversions are going to be required for something like this?
So we did try to minimize it on that front. And I, appreciate the patience. I know that many people from Old Main also have, put in different sign requests, and, we're aware of, different fatalities over the years. And Old Main is unique in that nature. For this particular work, there's trenches that would just go across the road that just basically if there's a catch basin on either side, usually the road's crowned and you have a catch basin on either side. So the one that's right next to the tree trench is pretty easy to redirect the flow. But the one that's across the street will have to be piped over. So there would be a trench across. I believe there's,
So what I'm hearing you say is we're going to dig up Old Main again?
unfortunately, yes. We wanted to get this done with the sewer work, but because of the grant timelines, unfortunately, was not the case. And I know that, I understand the frustrations with that.
So if I'm looking at, like, L9, I can see,
It looks like there's 4 cross trenches.
There's 4 total.
right. So that gray area on L9 is the trench that goes from one side of the street to the other, in the far corner, on L9.
And the back L10.
Non-LED.
Yeah, and on L10 as well. So there'll be 4 new cuts. How quickly can those be done? I mean,
Yeah, they're
is
not-
that,
it's
is that
not-
an overnight
Yeah,
thing?
it's not, it's nothing compared to sewer work being 20-plus feet deep. These are only, 5 feet deep. It's much different than the inconvenience for the sewer,
Okay.
for certain.
But there will be noise. There will be dust, there will be dirt. Again, I'm just thinking about all of my neighbors on Old Main and traffic diversion. So, and your anticipation is that this would start in 2027?
Yes,
Okay,
spring, yep.
yeah, springtime.
How long do you think it would take to finish?
We haven't discussed the duration, but I can follow up on that.
The only reason I ask is the replacement tree shall be installed within 3 years of this approval, which was on May 30th of 2024. Don't see it being done by May.
Ideally, I believe
27.
there's a little bit more details on the planting windows, but if they could get them sourced and delivered by April 15th.
It just may be a case where
need
if you're
to.
not done, just notifying the planning board
Yeah, of
and
course.
letting us
It-
understand.
Mr. Rubenstein just pointed out to me that it's a 3-year
Right.
term, so it would be 2027,
End of May.
May of 2027.
That's what we're talking
If
about.
We're
that,
talking about.
That's
yeah.
what we're talking about.
so they would have to come back for an extension?
That's what we were talking, yeah.
Sorry. I was listening over here.
I wasn't sure
We
that
had the
she
same
was-
conversation.
It's all my fault. I'm sorry. The clerk
He's the clerk.
apologizes.
He's the clerk.
Yes, that was I was bringing up that point that they were supposed to be installed within 3 years, so that if that can't happen, then I think they can just come and notify the planning board and ask for a certain extension. Certainly, if they don't get the grant, that's certainly a little bit more complication, but if it's a matter of you're just going to be working on it for a little bit longer next year during construction season, then I think that's something that you guys can just approve for valid reason.
So, Amanda, again, so support from the planning board enhances your opportunities to get the grant, or has the grant already been applied for?
We submitted for it already this past spring.
So-
We should find out by the end of the summer.
So any kind of action we take tonight doesn't really affect what's going to happen at the state level at this point?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a couple of things for deliberation here for the board. One is, if we want to go forward, and again, focusing on L9 and L10, I think, Amanda, those are the things that are most interesting to us, because that's where we gave you the tree warden, the first approvals. Are there any suggestions on changes to that? I mean, these are at 75%, it's going to be tough to change at some point. But what I'd like to suggest is that we have a formal motion that the board approves, especially the drawings on L9 and L10. I don't think L11 comes into
L11 is
play.
just the landscaping detail plan.
Yeah, L11 as well, right? And I'm thinking that if everyone's comfortable with it, we can have a motion with it. But before we do that, there are members of the public here, and I'd encourage anyone who would like to speak tonight to join in the conversation before we take a vote. Okay.
And also, I don't
anyone
know if anybody
online?
online,
Any
Madam
hands?
Chair, does that include anybody online? We haven't seen any virtual hands yet, but if that changes, I'll let you know.
Anyone online who's zooming in, like to join with us here? Okay, so Amanda, you'll be back to us at some point when the other side of the street I guess, comes into play, because I think that was part of the original,
Yeah.
the original permit, if you will, that we
There's no
approved.
requirement that it be exactly where it
Was. yeah.
originally, but obviously, we would like to be able to do that. Obviously, they want to do it for a bunch of different stormwater, nutrient uptake reasons, so I think it's a good synergy between everybody to get that done. But I think that you might consider this as meeting the requirement of the one-to-one, if you would like, with the request that they come back with the next phase, so that we can have these same conversations, so people know what's going on the east side.
Okay. So Kathy's prepared a motion for us to consider to approve the Old Main Street replanting plan shown on L9, L10, and L11 of the June 2026 plans prepared by Horsley Witten and presented at our meeting this evening, with tree species to include the serviceberry and the eastern rosebud.
Redbud.
So moved.
Redbud, sorry.
Right, yeah.
I don't know if you want to limit it to those particular species, but those are the ones that we know Eversource can do. I don't know if you want to put a little caveat at the end, or,
Well,
Yeah, well, you had a
Oh,
good
no,
suggestion.
no, but I think the fact that Will brought up the,
Drought resistant.
yeah, there's a couple there that are under 20 that may be a little more drought resistant.
but if it can't be, and
has to be
Ken's point's right. I mean,
to
it
be
can't be
native.
underneath an overhead utility if they're just going to
No, but but one of the ones he pointed out is under
Yes,
20
but
feet.
unfortunately, they're not native, and they're not
Oh,
on
I
the
see.
they're
So-
not on the Eversource list. So I think we're sort of we're in a,
Bind.
dare I say, a
I would
cul-de-sac.
assume native takes precedent over everything, correct? Because it's they're easier to grow and more, is that right, Ron?
I'm sorry?
A native species would probably, if you had to rank the criteria, that would probably be the most important.
It's required in
native.
the decision, because
native
that
to
was
the-
required by the conservation.
Okay, so native is,
I also think that the first flush, maybe I'm wrong, with the first flush, so even small rainstorms would be directed immediately to those?
Right, so they're intended, so the first 1 inch of rain runoff has the most amount of nutrients in it. So all of them except for one is at 83%, meet that first 1 inch of runoff. So that's what is the most concentrated for, so yeah, so there's nutrients more so in that.
But even small events would go would be
directed to the
directed
root
to that versus going to the outfall.
But then the town is still responsible for maintaining the trees.
Yes.
So if we continue to not get any rain, or as much as we want, despite all the really great planning ahead, some nice people from DPW are gonna have to come and water the trees. Okay.
Well, maybe we adjust the language on the motion to say with tree species to include but not limited to?
yeah.
Would that work for you, Amanda? The serviceberry and the eastern red bud.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Thank you so much, Amanda. We appreciate you coming. And you're next on the, you're next on the agenda.
I just have to reorganize my papers.
So next on our agenda, complete streets policy. The town has completed an updated draft, complete streets policy. And we received a note through Kathy and Amanda that she's incorporated comments provided to us from the original draft policy, which we reviewed a while ago. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And Kathy is suggesting that we have a memo in support of this. No formal action needs to be taken. But why don't you run through what we have here on complete streets, Amanda, if that's okay with you?
Yeah, I'll just do a little quick snapshot. So I came to visit last August. It's just like exciting. It's the last year came at least twice. Came to the planning board to talk about an idea that Bob Rittenauer, our town administrator, had asked for DPW engineering to pursue, which is the complete policy, which is a Mass DOT initiative And I had given you a synopsis that, you know, the goal is to fill critical gaps in transportation networks, giving that Massachusetts municipalities the tools and funding to advance complete streets in their community, and that they provide a safe and accessible option for all travel modes, walking, biking, transit vehicles for all ages and abilities. And I had shared previously that it's a 3-tier program. The first tier is adopting the policy, which we had drafted and discussed last time. The second tier is getting public, input and developing a prioritization plan. And the last step is actually doing more projects, which is great to add another funding source. And it's been interesting over the last year. Different within MassDOT, different funding agencies were like, oh, you're not eligible unless you are a complete streets community. And then they decided to remove it all together. So now you don't even need to be a complete streets community to get their funding, but they're going to give you more points if you are, which to me would make a lot of sense. So I just found it comical over the last year that they've kind of taken this shift. But needless to say, since I've been here, the last year in January, I went to the Disability Commission to present the draft policy, given the feedback that I got from Joanne. I also asked the Cape Cod Commission to review our draft, and they provided comments. In May, I went to the Recreation Commission, also gave them a copy of the draft and the intent. Those have been our steps to date. I have a summer intern, Justice, who will be setting up tables at both libraries and also at the senior center, and then setting up one on the Cape Cod Rail Trail, just to solicit sharing the draft policy. We're going to kind of open it up for like a 30-day public comment, and then I asked to go before the select board August 11th to share exactly what I just shared with you guys tonight on all the outreach that we have done and have completed for them to consider adopting the policy.
Okay. Kathy, any comments from you?
I didn't realize, I thought you were further along, but if you're going to be getting a lot more public comment, maybe you'll be making changes and edits. I don't know whether you would want to wait until it gets the final version that you think is going to go to the select board to a letter, or we could just do some type of support of the whole idea of
Having support of the idea is fine. I think that would be helpful. I mean, I'll share that I have that we started together and are ending together, and.
But the calendar for you is to put it in front of the select board in August.
Correct. Yep.
And there would be public outreach before then.
Yeah, we did update the website to include it. We have the draft policy on there, and contact if you want to. If the public wants to provide comment, we're going to work with our IT communications department to get it posted on social media. So the goal, and like I mentioned, those 4 tabletop outreach opportunities. We'll do those over the next couple weeks, and then wrap it up.
Madam Chair?
Yeah. Mr. Smith?
You go, Will. You go first.
I just have a suggestion. If
Rubenstein.
we have a meeting August 5th, I think it is. So I don't know if the timing works, but maybe we could see where this is on August 5th before it goes to the select board, and then we can write a little memo of what we think when it's August 5th as opposed to June 17th. Just to follow up on your idea, but put it into practice, and maybe,
That I don't think is necessary. I mean, if you provide us
That
with a
helps.
final draft version, you don't necessarily have to come back. I
Oh,
mean,
right,
there's
sorry.
not going to be a lot of changes.
I'll let you two decide who
I'm
comes
just saying,
where.
there's not going to be a lot of changes versus dragging her out for another night
no.
meeting.
Agreed.
We could just talk about it,
Right.
and then I could even have a draft support memo at that
Or
time.
even in the second meeting in July, depending on the timing of when all the feedback is received. But then it would have ample time before August 11th, and then we'd see something that's a month or 6 weeks down the road, as you suggested.
So for tonight, any comments that we might have to share with Amanda tonight as she goes forward with the further evolution of this would be helpful, I think. So, Ms. Britta.
Just one brief comment. Amanda, when this was developed, was there any conversation about the seasonality of, particularly kids in the summertime on bikes, and on the main thoroughfares, and how we can we do anything to enhance the safety of these kids at night leaving work? I know it's not an issue in the wintertime, obviously, but I can tell you already, you see kids on the motorbikes, no helmets, all that kind of stuff. Was there any was that kind of,
There's a lot of conversations about the whole e-bike and that evolution. That
right. Okay, that's
isn't-
all I wanted
that's
to know,
probably
yeah.
even too new for for complete streets and how to incorporate that.
Yeah.
But and I know that the police take that that matter pretty seriously. Yeah, this is more when we're putting it together a project for design that we're thinking about.
Okay,
all
bigger,
together.
sort of a bigger picture
And
idea.
it'll be good to have a prioritization plan, because I've gotten, since I've been here the last 7 years, requests here and there about sidewalks. And then, there's some Facebook groups that share a little bit more information and some, things I hadn't even had heard of. And I was like, oh, well, no one's emailed me asking or, requesting anything. We're doing a lot for complete streets anyway. We're constructing the one you see on Buck Island.
Right.
We did the Higgins Kroll shared use pass. So we're doing it. This is just allowing us to have additional funding sources, because we were going to be limited at one point for the Safe Routes to School, being able to apply for those projects unless you were a Complete Streets community, but they've dropped that requirement. So, and that happened just in this last year. But you never know, maybe they bring it back, and at least we'll have it. As I had shared before, 11 of the 15 communities on the Cape already have an adopted policy. So, and they're all pretty boilerplate. They have a whole requirements that you have to score an 80 on, and our score is about like an 86. So it's not like the most conservative measure, but it meets the requirements.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, Mr. Pendleton.
Just to follow up with Susan, I agree that a lot more kids on bikes during the summer, but also I find it more difficult in wintertime when it's darker and a lot of kids on bikes with no lights. I
Right.
mean, that's just a comment. And the other thing, have neighboring towns done this, and have you gotten feedback from them?
Yeah, so 11 communities on the Cape have
Okay.
adopted them. Our neighbors on either side have them.
Okay.
And they range from, they first implemented the program in 2016, and everyone was a little hesitant because they thought that it meant that, you had to do certain
Yeah.
criteria, but that has, been a lot more minimized. So if you look at online, the Cape Cod Commission, and we'll have a link on the website, you can click to view all the other towns' policies, but there was like a few in 2016, and then there was a bunch in 2022.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, one
Yes, Mr.
follow-up. So
Rubenstein.
we just passed something at the Springtown meeting relating to the state taking more for the right-of-way for the work that they're about to do on Route 28. So that had nothing to do with complete streets, but yet we're going to yield. I mean, it's all dovetailing, right? So
Actually
it's
did
all-
have- right.
I mean, we're not officially complete streets, but we are going to get a shared use path on the south side of 28 while this is all happening. In other words, there's no way that could have been better or more awesome. It's just timing.
Right.
We don't get any more we don't get any special consideration, or certainly the state just decided as part of the tip, they're just going to do it, whether we're complete streets or not.
That's right.
I'm just would like to point out that
And I think it also,
ri-
because it
silly.
does, I mean, there's
guess.
caveats in here that provide flexibility for, different means, but when it comes to like commercial redevelopment or subdivisions, to be thinking about the different modes. So I know that even, recently we had a site plan review for Taco Bell, and, we did provide comments about providing sidewalks and a crossing, and, that seems to be favorable as part of that piece. So it just, it's important to be thinking about all the users.
So if I understand, Amanda, this is an important document. Good, it's important to have a policy kind of codified for the town of Yarmouth. Most towns have. But it's mostly about being able to say, yeah, I have this, and I can apply for state money.
Yep. Yeah, just similar to the stormwater project from the last agenda, our goal is to pursue every, grant that we can for our projects, even if we are already, doing it.
Thank you.
So what kind of a motion do we need, Joanne? Do we need a
do
motion
not-
on this?
We do not
Nothing.
need
We
a
don't
motion at all.
on this at all?
We need
Okay.
just a consensus that that I think, as Kathy and I discussed earlier, that the planning board is in support of this, but I do think the letter from us supporting it officially to the select board can come in July. And you don't need to come back. But we would like to see any changes that you see in the policy that you've received from the public. And then we'll reconsider it, and we'll put together a support note at that point.
Could I just ask one other question?
All right.
Who could help us fund, or who could help us with the prioritization plan?
The Cape Cod Commission, they do them for all the towns.
So this is a case where we do this, we can help, the commission will help us develop that plan.
The commission will,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Correct, yeah.
So
nice
there's a
way of
bunch
saying
of
they pay
dominoes,
for-
there's
they
a bunch
pay
of
for it.
dominoes, yeah. There's a
Or it
bunch of
goes on
dominoes
there.
here, yeah.
Yeah, it
part of
goes
their
in
work, not your work.
UPWP. Yeah, you'd have to put in a request for their UPWP,
Oh,
and
got it.
that would get approved, and they would help with that. Yeah, and it's been really great because they had Vision Zero, and so we've been compiling all the public feedback that we've gotten to see if there's any like low hanging fruit that we can do that isn't like a major overhaul. But they've already gotten a lot of the good feedback, so this will be even more important to then be targeting just the different.
Okay.
roads.
Any other questions or comments for Amanda? Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Amanda.
Really appreciate it. Next on our agenda is the Habitat for Humanity project. In our packets tonight, Kathy has provided a draft memo of support to the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Community Housing Committee, June 10th, support memo, a project narrative. I think Kathy's, the waivers, Kathy, I didn't print them out at home. Do we have the additional waivers?
Yes, you have them on your, yep, they're right there.
It's this.
It's in your
Got it.
hands.
Oh, it's right there.
Okay.
Thank you. And some excerpts from the architectural and site plans. With some, so what we'd like to do is prepare a support memo to the select board for this. Is that,
Zoning Board of Appeals.
Zoning Board of Appeals, sorry. With any edits and changes from Kathy's notes here. I had, when Kathy and I talked this morning, or this afternoon, I had a couple of them, but I'm like to engage the board in any other comments they might have. Deirdre, you're on the committee, so tell us more.
Well, we did discuss it at great length at the last meeting, and I think Kathy's really covered it very well here. So I don't have a lot to, I really don't have much else to say. It just looks really good. They seem to have very good control of the parking and traffic, and everything seems well planned from what we saw at the housing meeting. I have maybe extra pictures that I brought from that meeting, but I don't think they're necessary, because you've got them all in here.
The architecture is very
It's
good.
very nice.
Yeah, and they did make some tweaks because some of the orientations weren't towards the street where the front face would have been towards the street, but they moved them in order to allow for the potential solar capture. So they put a little bit of embellishments on the end that would be facing the street. Not a lot, wouldn't add a lot of cost, but the little details that make it read as the front. So they've been very cooperative.
And they really have a nice mix of different sizes and different styles. And everything just seems to fit together, and everybody says they are so great to work with, and they've done so well in the past. So,
Thank you. Ms. Britta?
Just a couple of factual questions. What is the goal of the housing production plan? I know that changes slightly annually. What is the raw number that we're supposed to get to?
Annually, it's 62 units
A year.
a year.
yeah.
So is there 62 units? We're supposed to do 62 units every single year?
Yes,
Until we get to the 10%?
right.
10% of the total?
Yeah.
Once we reach the
yeah,
10%.
Okay, all right.
We're out of the 40B.
How-
so
Does anyone know how close we are to the 10% at this
We're
point?
about halfway there. We're about halfway there.
I thought we were much further
No,
along.
we're 5 to 6%.
And what's the rest of the
Five.
cake?
I
Does
think,
anyone know?
Deirdre, am I
That's
right?
5.
That's what I've.
5 to 6%?
Yes.
No, we're 5. We're not 6, we're 5.
5, yeah.
Yeah.
And does anyone know where we stand vis-à-vis the rest of the Cape? I always thought we had a very good number. I mean, Mary does a phenomenal job, as you know.
does.
I always
does,
thought we had a very good number.
Orleans is probably at the top, I have a feeling.
We have so many housing units. So to get to 10% of all of our housing units is
And that,
it's like
this does not
1,200.
include federal subsidy, does it? This doesn't include Section 8 at all. This is just state grants.
Well, Deirdre, you would know, but Section 8 is portable.
I don't think it does.
You carry it to the place where you
These
go
are-
to
Right,
live.
right, it's
So
not,
it's not the physical building.
Correct.
So it's not in the count.
right, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's a
yeah.
permit that someone carries with them, it's not attached to an address.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay, and then The square footage, I could not find the square footage for each one of these units. Did I miss that on the chart? How big is a one-bedroom? How many square feet? I could not find it.
I don't know. It's not on here.
I couldn't find it, but I'm always lousy at reading these things.
Let me see if I,
There's lot area, but it doesn't
Yeah,
show
Right,
the
it
square
doesn't show the
footage.
square footage of the units. Could we,
no, let's see.
I think at some point it should be included somewhere, maybe not necessarily in our memo, but we should know what,
Maybe it's in Deirdre's packet from her committee.
If we do the math, it's,
I'll do some math out real quick, Madam
yeah,
Chair.
I'm looking at, yeah, yep.
yes, the lot size, but not the,
They're
not the size
meeting
of the
all
unit.
of the minimums.
Oh, yeah, but I think it's more just in your mind,
Yeah, so you
knowing
can picture
what
it's
the
a-
size of the house
right.
is helps in relation not just to the lot. I'm sorry, Mark?
28?
A one-bedroom is
It's like
728?
28
That
by
number, Mark.
28.
And what, Mark, do you have a two-bedroom?
Double?
That is the two-bed.
That is the
Oh,
two-bedroom.
no, that's a one-bedroom.
That's
A one-bedroom.
That's a
So should we just
one-bedroom.
multiply times 720? Should we just double and triple?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I was just trying to make it easy, Susan.
No.
That's the whole building. We're just looking at bedrooms.
The two-bedroom has got to be 1,000 square feet, Mark, right? Wouldn't you think? Yeah, but the one-bedroom, we know, is, if you do the 28 by 28, it's,
Okay, if, Mary probably knows.
Oh, Mary knows.
Yeah. If someone could just
Yeah.
get that so that we have some, because I'd like to, I'm always visualizing an ADU and comparing it to an ADU. You know, we sort of know what an ADU size is. This would be bigger than an ADU, obviously.
oh, yeah,
All right,
Two-bedroom is 1,080 square feet.
yeah.
1,080?
080.
1080, yeah.
And can you quickly do threes?
I'm
He's on it.
getting there, trying to read this. It's like-
Very small.
Is there one three-bedroom on this?
There is.
There is.
There is
On the-
one.
One
right,
three-bedroom.
There's two, I believe,
2 3-bedrooms.
on the
Two
right side,
three-bedrooms?
on the northeast.
Oh, that's
portion.
right, yep,
Yep.
I see it.
I mean, it's an awesome
Three-bedroom is 1320.
1320. Okay, great.
I did take off, yeah, I did.
Not his first rodeo. Not his first rodeo.
Yeah, that helps.
Can't sleep on the porch?
I mean, they're reasonable sizes.
Oh, yeah,
for
wonderful.
sure.
It's a wonderful project. It looks
I think
great.
it's fantastic.
And they're, they're a quality operator.
It's the right spot for them. It's,
Madam Chair, can I
Yes,
mention a couple
of
things?
course, Mr.
First of all,
Rubenstein.
it is incredible when you think about that parcel, what they've been able to do. And-
Yes,
And
yes.
it's like, wow. Because every time I drive by there, I'm like, how are they gonna do this?
the way it's
And
positioned.
they're
on
doing
it,
it.
yeah.
And so
to
I know it's
Kathy's
been through a whole process, and Deirdre, you've been in way more of the details than we have. And it's a credit to everybody who's had to work together to make this work. And yes, we'll get to the waivers in a minute. The other thing I want to point out that it just tickles me because I think it's nice for our friends at the zoning board is that every house comes with a shed. And given all of the stuff that the zoning board has to deal with, here are 6 new houses that will never have to come to them for a shed hearing. And it's like, but it makes me just realize that to the extent that other projects can somehow consider the idea of anticipating kinds of things, not just more importantly, for the folks that actually are going to live and work and raise a family there potentially or not. But it's also some of the things like having to then go to the zoning board 6 months after they get this wonderful home because they hadn't thought it through. But here's an example of a project that's being very well thought out, and hopefully will also benefit our friends at the zoning board by having 6 less appearances. You're welcome. So I would say thanks to Habitat for doing that, and it's neat, and it's something that maybe other developers will think about going forward. But they also have different motivations, so we'll leave that for another discussion.
Storage is always a big component of the Community Housing Committee, and I know Mary is always on top of that.
And these will be fee simple ownership.
Home
fee
ownership.
simple.
Yep.
Who buy that lot.
So they'll be responsible for the maintenance and the upkeep of the lot, the whole thing, okay.
Any comments? Kathy has prepared this draft memo from us to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And their meeting, I believe, is on the 25th, Kathy, if I...
Correct.
So we want to try to finalize this tonight. I've given Kathy some preliminary comments, but any other comments from the board or edits?
I think it was very well done.
That's great.
Okay.
100% in
I'll
favor.
just share with you, my one comment would be to drop the final bullet and just have it be part of a final paragraph that would say, for these reasons above, the planning board supports the waivers being requested, period.
Period. And just,
Thank you for the opportunity for the planning board. If that works for everybody?
Well, Madam Chair, do you anticipate, you and Kathy, as you were thinking about this, and maybe Mark can help us, do you anticipate any pushback
No,
on this?
no,
Okay,
absolutely none.
but obviously they have to list it out and document it all because that's part of the
Yeah.
yeah, well, and there's,
application, right?
and
Okay.
there's a lot of waivers.
There's a lot of
There's a lot of waivers.
Oh, no, I know, that's what I meant, given the number, but it's all in the context of all the other pieces that have already been done. Okay, thank you.
When
I
Kathy
agree
and
with
I
you,
talked
by the
today, why I suggested that we strike are reasonable and in line with many of our existing res.
Yeah.
There's gonna be
'Cause they're
someone
not.
out there who
It
could
is-
say,
it
yes,
isn't.
I don't
Yeah.
agree with that.
I don't think it is.
So,
I like
and
your
I think,
edit.
but I think from our perspective, these waivers being requested we're in support of them.
Yep.
Period, end of story.
Yes.
I like your suggestion, Madam Chair.
So Kathy and I will work on the final memo, and we'll get it to the zoning
Make
board
that
of
one
appeals.
change.
With
I'm
that
just
one
going to make
change?
that change.
With that
unless-
change, is that, if that's,
Yes.
we have a consensus on that?
Yes.
Do.
So I'll make it and I'll send it to Dolores tomorrow. And I can
great.
send it out to everybody, just so you'll have the final.
Great, that sounds great. Thank you, Kathy.
So you don't need a motion on that at all, Joanne?
We don't need a
right?
motion on this, Kath, if I
No.
recall? No, no motion. Next on our agenda this evening, Kathy and I attended the Community and Economic Development Committee meeting on Monday, where Kathy had prepared a request for consulting planning services. I'd like to turn it over to Kathy to go through that. Again, this is in conjunction with the grant, if you will, that we received from the Affordable Housing Trust. We're going to couple that with the CEDC to get a consultant in place to help us move forward with some of the work we have to do in the local comprehensive plan. So Kath, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. As Joanne mentioned, I mean, we got the $50,000 from CEDC. They're very kind to us. We also got the $25,000 reallocated from the Affordable Housing Trust, and then we had about $19,300 left over from just for previous allocations, and we were able to use some of the community planning grant towards the LCP, so we kind of were able to hoard some of that money. So that gives us about $94,300, so about $90,000. We like to always keep a little bit squirreled away in case we had come up with a good idea we would like to do an amendment on. About $90,000 to hire a consultant. A lot of the stuff that's in here at the beginning is like the purpose, the goals and objectives, and the community information. Those are kind of the things that we always have to include within a request for proposal, but the meat of it really is the technical scope of work that's on the third page. And maybe we can kind of go through that a little bit. Obviously, the first task is always, you know, the meetings, the public engagement, all of that coordination, project management. So we have the kickoff meeting. I put in here having 3 in-person community meetings. I'm not sure whether, I kind of went back and forth between 2 and 3, so I don't know how you guys might feel about that, to garner input on the proposed amendments. We're going to be meeting all the time on these proposed amendments, but this would be like more of a formal, you know, get the word out, a lot of publicity for people to come. We would be presenting ideas. So I think we would certainly at least need 2, but I threw in 3. Also facilitating, we had that great stakeholder meeting with developers as part of the mixed use, maybe also having, as we get further along, maybe reconstituting some of those people and kind of show them the ideas that we've come up with and get some of their input. And then obviously the meeting with you guys as needed, and maybe I've also said maybe we might want to get input from some other boards and committees like the Design Review Committee, maybe Community and Economic Development Committee might have some ideas, the Zoning Board of Appeals. So we estimated some 3 remote meetings for that, and then just the general coordination with staff that goes on in preparation for all of our meetings that we then have. So I don't know if you want to go through task by task or whether, no, okay. Susan said no.
Is that a suggestion or a declaration?
That's a declaration. Only because most of these things we've talked about. I just have one question. Kathy, when we did have that stakeholder meeting, there was a lot of conversation about maybe we have too many VCODs and consolidating some of those. Can we get to that discussion with this statement of work? I
Well,
think we can.
I don't think it's going to be through that stakeholder meeting. I think it's going to be as part of the discussions related to Task 5, which is the zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay, okay. That's fine.
So Task 2 is just the resource document, reviewing all of that great, and I have a list and links to all of the resource documents that we would be
Okay.
wanting a,
Because I thought that was a good suggestion.
a consultant to look at. Yeah, they always do, but I want to make sure that you get in there, don't just glance at
Okay.
it. And then also, I thought the benchmarking was very good with regard to the mixed use, and maybe we could do something similar with design standards, investigating what other communities are doing, kind of presenting it to us, and see if it's in a format that we're interested in doing. And then that helps feed into the next task, which isn't really 9I. I don't know what
I was
that's.
going to ask, what is the mysterious task 3, and do we get to see the secret
Yeah, I don't.
the secret memo that has task
no,
3 in it?
no.
Task 3 is 9?
No, it's a little, but my number, I kept moving them around. and
Oh, it's
I'll-
like when the word in Word when they keeps auto formatting.
I did move them around quite a bit, and so I did eliminate the marketing thing. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. So the design standards, obviously, we've always been talking about that. We have the architectural and site design standards. They're very, in my opinion, not necessarily applicable to most of the things that we're doing, and maybe making them a little bit more applicable. The goal is to actually have a product at the end with illustrations and graphics that we could adopt. And if it lives outside the zoning bylaw, so that's something that we could adopt through a public hearing, the architectural and site design standards. And then also looking at the VCOD design standards. We had talked about that before, and kind of meshing them together a little bit better, and maybe not making them quite so difficult to understand. Mark and I kind of pull our hair out a little bit, trying to make sure that someone's in compliance. And if we're doing that, then they're also doing it, trying to ensure that they're being in compliance. So making that a little bit easier. Task 5/4, zoning bylaw amendments. That's where we're going to really get into all of those recommendations. I mean, BSC Group and Horsley Witten went through quite a bit of detail of our overlay districts, and had some very specific recommendations on things that they thought might help us to promote mixed use. And I think we just need to dive into those, have a matrix, a whole spreadsheet of all of our existing overlay districts, what's allowed, and then what we're kind of proposing, and maybe making them mesh up a little bit more so it's not quite so different in each VCOD, and maybe even looking at, the different villages at that time. Then the last task there is actually task 5, design review and site plan review processes. So now that we get the design standards and we've got everything in place, we also want to make sure that we have clear design review process, and we also have clear site plan review process. We talked about the mass winds and the economic bond bill, changing what site plan review is. I don't think it's going to mesh with what's in our bylaw now, so maybe having somebody come and help us mesh all of those things together, so that our processes are all in line. And then also streamlining our permitting, of trying to make it less, having to go to less boards, less committees, and making it simpler and easier for people.
Kathy, I know that the chamber a couple of years ago did not a big study, but they had a long conversation about the permitting process and trying to streamline it. So they may have some good suggestions or good material that the consultants would want to take a look at.
I think there's some things that people want to streamline we're not streamlining the building code.
No.
We're not streamlining Conservation Commission,
No.
But yeah, I think there's some obvious things that we can streamline in our zoning and land use
Right.
process to make things easier. If you guys are being the design review authority, do they need to go to the design review committee?
Correct.
No. So thinking about all of those things and just making it simpler and making it consistent. The VCOD, they come to me for site plan review and design review versus just going to design review for me and then site plan review tomorrow. So it's just like, it's a different process, different forms, and people are like, what am I doing?
It's very
So just-
confusing.
Yes, it is, and it's difficult to administer on our level as well. So let's see what we can do to streamline that. One thing I did mention to Joanne is, if we go out with this proposal for $90,000 and we're maybe not getting a lot of bites, it might be indicated that we're asking too much for too little money. So task number 7 might be something we could pull out and we could work on ourselves.
We can do,
Versus being something that, a consultant I think would be helpful, just having someone completely immersed, just like us, in all of these things. Are very, very closely tied together, all of them. And then just the last thing is the summary is actually having we want a document at the end that you clearly are providing us with all the recommendations, and then giving that final presentation to the planning board. The one thing that we had talked about a little bit in CEDC was looking at different uses on Route 28, things that might promote more economic development opportunities. But there's going to be that market study. We're talking about it for a long time, but it's never quite gotten legs. I think with Megan here and the new CEDC being reconstituted, I think that's going to happen. And let's wait and see what that says, and then we can kind of look at what we need to do and potentially look at for changes in the use table. There's some things about residential that we could also look at individually. I know that when the Cape Cod Commission did their housing strategies, one of the things was, do you really need to have double the minimum lot size in order to have a duplex? So like if you have a 40,000 square foot lot, do you really need to have an 80,000 square foot lot? These are things that we could talk about amongst ourselves and don't necessarily have to be in there. But I think that we would be heavily involved in the market study that's being done. CEDC and Planning Board would kind of work together on that one. So what I'm hoping is, if I'm not way off, I know that Joanne had a couple edits that she was going to provide. I'd like to get this to procurement, and then they can start wrapping it up into an actual RFP, and we can go out for proposals.
what is the timing on this, Kathy? When are they going to make the decision?
Well, we need to get the RFP out, and so then that's going to take, it's going to take a minimum of 3 months, probably 4 months before we
Okay.
could consider having a
Any-
consultant.
Nothing till the end of the summer.
Yeah,
in
you got to
terms of-
evaluate it. We probably would want someone from the planning board to be on the evaluation team.
Yeah.
At least one, maybe two. But I expect it to take about 12 months to do it. The problem is timing-wise, like I say, some of these things can be done outside of town meeting, but there's going to be some things that will be included in town meeting. So we may be ready to do some things in the fall of 2027, but we might have to wait and do some things in the spring of 2028 in order to get us all there.
Yeah.
But there's certainly some things that I think we could get to by next fall that would be meaningful. And again, even if they're outside of the town meeting.
And can I ask a far-reaching question? I would assume some of the things, or some of the recommendations we take, may be applicable to Matikes once it's developed? No, yes?
There's a whole nother zoning review that's part of the next
That
phase of
development,
Matikes.
okay. Okay,
So that's
Takes care of
something that
that.
you guys
Good,
are going to
thank
be
you.
working on too.
thank you.
Yeah, BSC Group is actually continuing. Mass Development has kind of like their house doctors or whatever for different designers or whatever. And so they are already approved by them, and they have their scope of services. So they're going to be looking at different zoning. It's going to be an overlay district, but there's certainly some ideas for that. But that's also something that we're probably going to need to be looking at and thinking about when we're going to be needing to look at zoning on that. That's going to be a little bit more challenging, because when we're talking to people about zoning amendments, we're also talking to people about certain projects. So you kind of have to explain to people the benefit of the project in order to understand the benefit of the zoning.
Changing the zoning, right,
So we might be a little bit more in the forefront of that
okay.
as it moves forward.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
I have
Mr. Pendleton.
Comment and a question. I think, having written and read hundreds of these over the years, it's well-written, it's concise, it's good. My only question is, the first paragraph under the scope kind of gives them an open envelope to kind of say, I want to do this change and that change, and then you go back and it's $90,000, and once you start making changes, money occurs. And I'm wondering, should this be a not-to-exceed amount? You know what I mean?
The way we do it is we review the technical proposal
Yeah,
first, and
right.
then we identify the quality of them,
Quality, right.
whether they're highly advantageous, and we rank them.
So then my question would be,
Then there's a
these are
cost
changes that are made in their proposal and not after the fact?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes,
That's what
and
I
then their cost proposal would,
Would have to coincide with
Some-
the amount, okay.
well, technically, if you have two people who are exactly equal in
Then
your
then it's your best
evaluation, then
value.
it goes to the lowest,
It's-
right?
Well, it should
Goes
be
to the lowest
bidder,
price.
okay.
Yeah, it does. But if lots of times you may, this person's just so good that, yeah, they maybe want an extra $5,000 or whatever, but we can justify that, yeah, I think they're the better choice.
Better value.
Yeah, better value. So, yeah, so there's a whole process, and that's part of the review, and probably would have interviews and that type of thing.
Are we gonna have somebody on the review team?
Yeah,
Tom, it sounds like you just volunteered.
I would like to
And
volunteer.
it's not me.
That's his, this is
That's
his
your-
love.
that's
This
your
is like his
wheelhouse.
third
There we
love.
That's your wheelhouse.
His
That's
third
your
greatest
wheelhouse.
love.
we will have at least one, if not two members of the planning board. We don't want to have quorum.
Sadistic, you know?
Yeah.
Has it been done?
It's interesting. It's to see
Oh, it
how
is.
different people approach
It is.
things.
Especially if it's best value.
Madam, I have a question.
Comments? Yeah,
You have a-
Mr.
You want to
Smith.
go?
Oh, I'm good.
Okay, I just have a quick question, and maybe this could, since Mark is here, we could ask him. But given the timelines, so we're looking at fall 27 at the earliest in terms of any town meeting, and certainly spring of 28. And you've got, and that's practically tomorrow, because that's practically when the sewer is going to come online, which is in 29. So anybody that wants to try to prepare some sort of awesome project with phase one of the sewer system up and running, this may not be great. It's certainly the best we're going to be able to do given the constraints that we have. So my question is are there any little teeny tiny improvements that we can make that are way quicker than this timeline on like sort of a parallel universe where maybe, is there a way that, let me say it a different way. Is there any way that Mark and Kathy can have a meeting and come to us in let's say 60 or 90 days and say, we'd like to make these administrative changes while this process is going on? It's not going to disturb the process that we're putting in place on this, let's say 12 to 16 months tack, but it would make your lives better and easier in the meantime, and it doesn't require any town meeting work. Or could we do something at the fall town meeting? And I know that's practically tomorrow also. Okay, Kathy says no, but I'm just,
Kathy
okay,
just
but
blanched.
so let me just erase the concept of town meeting. Aren't there things that we can do administratively, or at least through us, that would make your lives easier?
Public hearings. You could do stuff.
That's
through
going to make
public
your
hearings.
life easier, having more public hearings?
Oh, no. We can make the changes via public
Oh,
hearings.
sorry, I was like,
No. Like
and-
the operational standards, the
Okay.
planning board operational standards, that's where the rules and regs and the process for VCOD sits.
okay, right, so, in other words, but we don't want to get that lost in this, because if it does, then we're not going to be able to do anything to make your lives better for another 18 months. So I would just say politely, because we, as you know, we care a lot about the two of you and all the other nice people that support the work that you do in concert. But if there are things that we can do, let's say in the fall even of this year, where you've come to us and said, Madam Chair, let's have a public hearing in October so we can do this memo full of stuff, I would be in favor of that. But again, it's your workloads, not ours. But I would just hate for us to go 18 months on stuff that maybe, if it could help you, we could help you sooner. That's it.
Like do some
And if
quick
you don't
hits.
want that, of course, you also have to say, that also takes work too, which I respect. But the consultant's obviously being hired to do a lot of the work. I just want to know the work that you guys can do with us sooner so that we can get some stuff
I
going.
think it's the
Thank you, Madam Chair.
streamlining
I'm
of the
done.
permitting.
Okay.
I think it's the streamlining of the permitting. And it's
That we
those,
can work on.
that, just for the VCOD, like I say, that sits in your operational regulations, so that could be fixed a little bit through a public hearing.
And that's done a little bit in concert even with this work. In other words, they're going to know about it and be aware of it, but it's not going to necessarily mess anything up.
The only other thing that might be smaller changes, but might have repercussions, as far as town meeting would be, who's the special permit granting authority? Because right now, sometimes, the road bylaw, you have to go two places. I think it's appropriate that it stays two places. It comes to you guys for the pretty, and it goes to the ZBA for the special permit, because you're asking for a lot of changes to our zoning. I think it's reasonable to have to go to two people. But just like the HMOD one, if somebody comes to you and it comes to you guys if people need a special permit relief. And I know Mark and I kind of disagree a little bit about this, but is that the same thing? If you're coming already to you guys for VCOD site plan review, if they need a special permit relief, could that be done via you guys? So people don't have to come to you guys for site plan review and then trot over here, just like 811 did, those 8 townhouses, and then have to go over to the zoning board of appeals and get, you could have that concurrent in one meeting. So there is sometimes there's nice separations. You guys decide the plans, you're the visionaries, and then the ZBA kind of implements them. But there might be some things like that. But that would require, obviously, town meeting approval change. But that's the only other thing, but an easier thing to do than some of the other things that we're talking about.
Well, I hope you'll consider what I'm saying, and if there are things that we can do as soon as this fall that don't involve town meeting, but that involve a public hearing that could benefit the two of you, as well as the other department heads and other town staff, then I'm in all favor of. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So Kathy, you mentioned the operational standards. That's kind of our code of how we operate.
Right.
And those changes do not need to go to town meeting, do they?
It's a public hearing.
It's just a simple public hearing.
Yep.
So maybe there are some things in there where the handoffs or the,
It's just the VCOD that for some reason got tucked into your operational standards. I think because they're so detailed. I mean, there's the checklist and then there's the application
in
form. and
the
then-
operational
Yeah,
standards.
yes. Yep.
So I guess we're asking you to maybe take a look.
Yep.
And if there are things that we can, low-hanging fruit, so to speak, that we can move forward on. Because the sewer's coming, and, we've already got projects in the works that we know are going to be very beneficial to us. So the sooner we can start to ease the process for developers, I think the better. A very good suggestion.
The only other thing maybe for fall town meeting is continuing that conversation that we had with regard to the maximum front yard setbacks. Once you get into like VC4, it's like 80, once you get to the 80-foot wide, I don't think we should change the minimum maximums, because Old Main Street eastward, the Mass DOT layout is 80 feet wide. They're fine. They're not going to have any trouble. That's why I think when a lot of people look at the J-Mart, to me, that doesn't look that close. It looks very kind of typical to some of the other things, the 15 to 25 that we've had, but it's because they have an 80-foot wide right-of-way. So their setback's not that much onto their property, but it's that much further from the edge of the roadway, so it kind of looks further along. So that might be something, and I know that we talked a little bit, I think Mary Vilbon brought it up at the CEDC meeting on Monday. That might be something we want to talk about, a little bit of language. What those exact numbers are, it's really hard to know because we do not have a designer on board for east of Parkers River. We just know what's west of Parkers River. We know that the section's going to look the same, so we can get some ideas. And it does look like it's hitting the south side more than it's taking from the north side. So is there a difference between those? So those are a lot of conversations to have, but that might be something that might help people, especially in the VCOD.
Any other comments on the scope of work Kathy wanted to hear from us in terms of, Kathy, I'd like to leave in task 7, because I think that's an important one, because that's kind of where the rubber meets the road here for us. If they can submit a proposal and give us some concrete suggestions, I think that would be helpful. But then again, that might be, if we have to pull that out, then we have to go back through the process, if I understand that.
No, I think what I would find is like if people aren't interested, we put out proposal. The first time we put out the proposal, the RFP for the LCP, we got
nothing.
Nothing. Nobody. And then we went back and we took a bunch of stuff out.
Yeah.
And we made some changes of you didn't have to do a master plan, you just had to be involved in master planning projects. And that's when we ended up getting 2 people. So that's what I mean by not getting anything. But the VCOD site plan review process would be something that we're talking about doing earlier rather than later.
And I just had a couple of editorial comments that I'll give to Kathy, and it had to do with task 4, number 3, or number 3, task 4. I was suggesting that the consultant develop revisions to the architectural and site design standards and the VCOD design standards to modernize them, period. This includes but is not limited to. Continue, continue, continue. And then the final sentence, the outcome of this process will provide an updated architectural design standards, and I'll give these to you, Kathy. But I wanted to work in some language to, because Mark is here, that we also want this to benefit and facilitate less work for the town staff, to make it easier for you guys. However we can facilitate the review process, so there are fewer steps that you have to go through, I think is going to be important. And I'd like to have that, as part of the proposal. So it's not just for the document, but it's really for your workflow. And any other comments on this?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So I'll give you my notes, Kath. We don't need a vote on that, that's just consensus. Short-term rentals, Kathy has a draft, number 3. If you want to run through that with us?
And Mark is here.
Thank you. Building Commissioner?
So there's not a lot of changes. I did send this draft and an inquiry to town council. In all fairness, I didn't get that to him till Monday morning, so I've not heard back. But I think we're at the point now where we really need to get their input before we move much further along. The changes that you're seeing here under definitions was just, we had talked about marital unit, and I looked it up, Googled it, and in Massachusetts, it's just spouses. So that's that edit there. And then Will had asked about hours a day, so that minor change had been added. On the next page, I took the definition for timeshare, fractional, and interval ownership units. This is directly from P-Town. I kind of like the way they had it laid out more so that same information, it was just slightly laid out a little bit different.
And some attorney had worked on this, for sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh, boy. Attorneys worked on it with other attorneys, I'm sure.
So let's not worry our town council with it.
And then under ineligible units, I mean, there was a request of what was the definition of an apartment, protected, and it said as defined in the zoning bylaw. I did ask the question to town council whether it's okay to prohibit short-term rentals on properties that have an ADU or a protected ADU. I think you can, but I don't know whether it gets into steps on ADU regulation feet, but I don't think so. Number 4, I didn't add this in, but if you'll notice in the use table, I had taken out allowing for short-term rentals in the MOD, which is the Medical Overlay District, and then also the municipal land. The municipal land is where the wastewater treatment facility is being located, and that's it. We're not going to have short-term rentals there. We're also not going to want to promote.
I'd like to watch the documentary about it. So let's see what we can do.
It'd be a whole new type of tourism.
Yeah, you could argue ecotourism.
Ecotourism,
You could
sure.
argue it.
So I would just add those into the VCOD road HM2. I know we had talked a lot about 703, which is the duplexes next to Parkers River. They can't do it anyway. Our use table says short-term rentals are not allowed in the VCOD.
Right.
So we already had it in there. Now, and I didn't think about it. And then now this is just like hammering it home in addition to including the road overlay district. Road is just B1, B2, B3 over that. So the conservation instead of environmental change was made. Just a little clarifications with regard to the overnight occupancy limitations shall be set.
Kathy, where are you now? Which
We're at the
section?
bottom
Oh,
of
at the
page
bottom,
2,
okay.
Point 4.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay.
under overnight, which is
Well, if you-
highlighted.
Yeah.
I think I just put in overnight instead of occupancy limits shall be used. There's no other changes there. I highlighted readily visible from exterior of the dwelling. I want to see it readily visible from the exterior dwelling. I had a question as to whether the Chapter 108 requires it to be on the interior of the dwelling, so I just have to look at that a little bit more closely. One of the things that in some of the other bylaws was, this is all about registration of short-term rentals. Some of them had licensing. So I just asked town council whether there was any benefits to licensing.
No.
And I don't think so, but I didn't know why other
Cost.
communities were
Yeah,
interested in
there's a
doing
cost
it.
on both sides of the table.
So that was just a question to town council. And that with the parking, we just reworded it. I highlighted 11 because I don't know if that's too early. And just said no overnight street parking from 11 a.m. to 7 a.m. to help eliminate that second sentence. I think Will had that comment.
It would just, I think it reads more direct now.
It does read
It's
much
just
better.
very simple.
Much better. But the 11 is highlighted because I don't know. It's a question mark, and maybe that's something that we ask when we start getting some more public input, whether that's too early.
Sure, folks that live on those streets will have
The
some idea.
one-
11 to
the-
7 is the
the one-
quiet
yeah,
hours.
Quiet hours,
So
yeah.
it's kind of
Makes
matched
sense.
with
Coordinate,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. So, and maximum, yes, the next one, occupancy, was also a clarification thing, maximum overnight occupancy from 11 to say 7 a.m. Shall be the,
I think the mic just turned off. Is the green button on?
it's on.
Oh, it's on? Oh, okay.
Did you give me the you gave me the dented one again. The dented one, you have to eat the mic, that's why I don't like it.
We can hear you, if that helps. Okay, that doesn't help people at home.
I was clarifying what no other time, so it was like the maximum overnight occupancy from 11 to 7 a.m. shall be the occupancy limit set by the building department at no other time during the use of the property. I think this was a comment that Will had to clarify what those times were. And then the next things has to do with the, well, maybe we're done. Oh, thank you.
Oh, no.
All right, I don't know what's going on. The other thing had to do with penalties and enforcement, and that's one thing that I sent all of that to town council, trying to get, his input. Right now, it's listed as being enforced by, I had a question about enforceability by the Health and Building Department, supported by the Police Department. And then also, I modified number 4, the suspension revocation, non-renewal of certificates. The 2 is highlighted because I don't know if that's the right number either. But I basically indicated up to 2 years as determined by the building commissioner, and the applicants may appeal this determination to the select board.
Do we have to have an appeal process?
I think you were going to have trouble if we don't give anybody, it puts him in a bad position, right? Because if he's making a determination, and nobody likes it, then he's getting beat up. No, don't beat him up. Take it to the select board.
select board, yeah.
I don't think you're going to get anybody going to the select board.
People have a right to appeal,
Yeah.
no matter what. Doesn't matter.
Seems reasonable.
So-
Agree with it or not, they have a right to appeal.
So I asked, this,
They have a right to appeal administrative decision, that's true,
right.
not a legal decision. Okay.
Not in the, this isn't going to be in the zoning bylaw anymore. Normally, his decision is always can appeal it to the ZBA.
Right.
But this is going to be in a general bylaw, so it needs to be identify who would be doing that appeal. So I did have questions to town council about that in particular. And then the effective date, making sure that we could make it the date of the special town meeting followed by approval. I just want to make sure there's not going to be any gaps that's going to cause any problems for us. And I also gave him an overview of what we had talked about of the 3 articles that we might be looking at, with Article 1 to adopt this new general bylaw, Article 2 to amend the zoning bylaw if the general bylaw passes, but it would be withdrawn if it fails, and then we'd have the 3rd one that would just extend the sunset clause if the general bylaw doesn't pass, and we'll withdraw it if it does. Just to make sure that if people aren't happy with us, at least we can maybe extend the sunset clause and get a little bit more time. Hopefully, they approve the general bylaw and approve the changes, and we're all good to go. The sunset clause, I still had that question you guys had originally to town council about, could we extend it for a longer period of time? I think it's a little moot now that we're talking about going with a general bylaw instead, but I did want to get that answer for you. And then I did just ask for some clarifying questions on the benefits of the general bylaw versus zoning bylaw, just to make sure I'm giving you the correct information. I think this is what is correct, is that the general bylaw, majority vote, and no grandfathering. And I specifically asked him, so if we have in our general bylaw that you can't register more than 2 as an owner, and then 5 years down the line, we're like, no, that's too much, we want to go down to 1, we have not created any grandfathering for the 2. So that was the direct question to town council. I think that's a good example of showing something we might want to change. But I think if it's all in the general bylaw and we can change it and it's not creating grandfathering, I think the sunset clause is a little bit of a moot point.
And that's just majority vote, right, Kath?
The general bylaw, correct, yeah, versus 2/3 for zoning. Unless it's only housing and then it's majority. So that's that.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yep.
Besides the fact that some people just like to be oppositional, what can you imagine would be significant pushback at any town meeting that would potentially jeopardize this majority vote? What, I mean, I think it's worth thinking about, as we're, and maybe, Madam Chair, I will withdraw the question and we'll wait for the public hearing. Maybe that makes more sense. I guess,
Well,
you know what, I'll withdraw. It's okay, I'll withdraw the question, because we don't know yet.
We don't know yet, and
Sorry.
I think it's, it puts Kathy in a difficult position.
Right.
She
So
doesn't,
I apologize. I will wait to hear the public comment as to why this is not a good idea. Thank
I
you.
think how we presented at the public hearing is gonna, and at town meeting makes some good sense. I mean, obviously, we went through the short-term rentals. We kind of gleaned what we thought was, what came out of that study. And it really had to do with protecting year-round housing, and then we can show what changes we're making in order to promote that. Reducing the commercialization, we can show what proposed changes is doing that. Addressing neighborhood quality of life issues, we can show the changes that we're making there, and then minimizing grandfathering. And that's why we had the sunset clause to begin with. Now we're going with the general bylaw.
And the last one would be, and I think Susan certainly was consistent on this, as were many others, and it's because Mark is here, is the enforcement. We're not making it worse, hopefully.
But I
But,
can almost,
there's still an enforcement mechanism that can be actually carried out.
Yeah, I think a lot of those are the things that Joanne and I were talking about that today, and I think we've talked about at other planning board meetings, is things that can happen outside of the bylaws, like developing that process for issuing a complaint, including the short-term rentals on the town website so people know the contact information. Maybe consider having that one page be a good neighbor so that that gets posted on all rentals, like on the fridge, so people know. Because I think most people probably are good because it's their property and they want to make sure that people are being good neighbors so they don't get complaints, but there's some people who don't care. So something along those lines might help. And then there might be some additional questions we can ask on the application to get us the information that we might need.
The occupancy, I would argue, is something that most people who are going to do a short-term rental aren't necessarily going to know. Unless, like you said,
Well,
you
that's
have
why
some
the
nice summary
certificate needs
that's
to be-
on.
They
can look
No,
at
no,
it.
right, that is very clear, like, oh, we can only have up to 8 people here. We can't have the ginormous house party now that I was
That's why they
planning.
say the rental certificate needs to be visible from the inside so that the renters know.
yes. But I think the thing that may engender a lot of conversation is that huge paragraph in yellow about, Interville
We're going to let
timeshare
Peter
fractional.
Slovak
pe-
answer
yeah,
that
people-
question.
This is a lawyer's delight.
Yeah.
I didn't put out any of your nameplates this whole night.
You're a nameless,
That's okay.
formless
Nameless
board.
I'm nameless too. I'm just a,
Hopefully the nice gentleman back
Talking
there
head in the
hasn't been
corner.
putting our names up every time we talk. That's even
sorry
better.
about that.
I have just one question, Kathy, in terms of the gray and the yellow and the red. The very last provision, 41810. I'm presuming that we want that to go away.
Correct.
Okay. We want that to be deleted. I just want to make that clear. Any other comments questions from the board? We have a member of the public here who would like to join us. Please, if you could identify yourself and your address.
My name is Diane Daw.
You might want-
At the microphone,
I
please.
think the microphone is working, we hope.
I don't know. My name is Diane Daw. I've been a homeowner on Webster Road in the Colonial Acres neighborhood for 30 years. I've lived across the street from a 6-bedroom, 3-bath rental. There have been problems. Thank you for your attention to this, and I'm very grateful that you're really looking at it and listening to people. And I know you've heard from Mr. Pelaya. I attended the last meeting via Zoom. I was lucky enough to be here this evening. I know he's mentioned our concerns, and he's the public voice of the group of neighbors in the Colonial Acres area. The occupancy is a big issue, and I've had 10 cars across the street from my home. I've had 17 people at one weekend. I've had 20 people another weekend. And I think if you can clarify the occupancy, is it 2 people per bedroom? Is it how many beds they can squeeze into the bedroom? And have some clarification on that, because people are putting, the queen below with the twin up above on both sides of the room and calling one bedroom 6 people.
That's the
So that adds to the issue.
It's not, the health department's done by Title V, is how they determine it. It's not based on the number of, if you have a pull-out couch or if you have 4 bunk beds, it's not based on that. It's based essentially on the 2 people per bedroom, which is Title V.
And it's a 7-bedroom house, not a 6.
And that's where it gets a little
Septic
complicated.
system, Right.
Okay.
So what's the math? Is that 14 or is
14.
that 28?
Yeah, it's
14.
14.
We're saying no more than 28. Sorry, Mark. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry.
Building Commissioner Mark Grills.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Mark Grills, Building Commissioner. That house has a 14-person occupant load, and that's for sleeping. They can have guests there, we can't do anything about that. But if they, their hours, if they're making noise, the idea is to call the police for the
Right.
noise complaint.
Right. And that has
I
happened.
actually called that gentleman the very next Monday after I got notification, and he seemed very bothered by the fact that there was that much noise happening at his
So
house.
were we.
Yeah, well, I can imagine why. There's actually new technology out there that he's implementing their decibel meters that are in the house. So when the decibels hit a certain level, his phone will ring, and he'll get a phone call, and he'll be calling the person who signed the rental. So these are things that are new. They're new technology that are coming out. He's putting them in. There's another house that Mr. Play was complaining about, I think was on Tanglewood. I called the person that owns that house. They haven't rented yet this year. It's been her and her family using the house, but she will be getting a rental certificate for that. So we get, the number of complaints we get a year is, I can count on one hand, as far as short-term rentals go. Neighbors generally don't get along with neighbors, it seems. That happens all over town. There's nothing we can do about that. But short-term rentals, the owners, when they receive a phone call, are pretty bothered. And that party that there was a video that Ed Palea had sent. When the owner of that house got a copy of that video, he was actually very bothered by that. So the short-term rentals, they have I think through Airbnb and through VRBO and all of those, they're tracked. You get a score, and if people complain about it on those websites, they lose points, and that matters to them, I guess. I don't know how the whole thing works, but that's all I have to offer.
Thank you.
I think one of the things that we were also looking at, and it was in the Falmouth bylaw, and Don was in support of it, was having it, no one, at any time, you can't have more than twice the occupancy. For a 7-bedroom, this is where we have a problem,
that's
because we
28.
have,
28
yeah, that's
people.
a lot of people.
28 people.
So, yeah, I think that's something we
But
need.
at night, it's 14. I mean, sorry, at sleeping time, it's 14.
14.
But all the other hours, it's 28.
And I know there's
The way
another,
this is written.
And the
how
other
many
14
bedrooms
on
are
the
on
front
that, on
lawn.
that New Hampshire Avenue?
32 New Hampshire Ave has, I think, 14 bedrooms.
It used to be a,
It used to be
Yes.
An inn or something?
Used to be a seminary.
a getaway or a retreat
So
for
it
nuns.
was a police retreat, yeah.
Huge place.
A nice big
so
septic
that
system.
has
Actually
a
wrote
lot
them a
of
violation notice for
occupancy,
running a
right?
hotel.
Years they violated, yeah.
And the Board of Appeals upheld my decision, so.
They have a
May I
parking.
address Mr.
Yes,
Grills?
absolutely.
You say it's a 7-bedroom house. The previous owner was the builder of that house and built a 6-bedroom house.
The septic system is rated at 770 gallons a day. That's 7 bedrooms.
Okay, but when you have 20 to 30-something male, or 20 to 30-something males from Holy Cross there for a weekend, it might be a stretch for the septic system. Because the people came in and the people did not leave as far as overnight.
So they
I think
stayed
what we're
overnight.
asking is if you can define the quiet hours more clearly with specific hours, and the occupancy as 2 people per bedroom. If it's a 7-bedroom, then it's a 7-bedroom. The no on-street parking within certain hours. I understand people can have parties and I'm at a disadvantage. I apologize. I wasn't sure that I would be here, and I don't have that document. That's,
Well, we'll give
I'm
you one.
sorry.
We'll give you one.
So, I've been entertaining family from out of town, so I wasn't sure.
Okay.
That's what you should be doing.
More fun.
But those are the big things. I did spent an afternoon or so going through the various sites online and just doing a quick search, and thank you so much, and found in that short period of time 22 houses that are short-term rentals within easy walking distance of my home on 6 streets, and I didn't venture beyond that. I know there was a reference made to commercialization of some of the neighborhoods, and one of my questions this evening was if a house or a building is only a short-term rental, there's no time when the owner is occupying that home, does that then become a business, or is it still a residence? And does that affect the taxing of it? Is there a different tax structure if it's only a business? And again, going back to the term that was used, the commercialization of a residential area. So, and I know with the prices these days, a lot of the bigger homes that are going up that haven't been available for sale for many years, even decades, they're being bought up by the LLCs and the trusts, and it would be a great advantage because most of these people come in after 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and the neighbors are there watching the cars unload and the suitcases go in and everything else, and who do we call other than the police? I feel guilty calling the police.
It's their job.
I know, but they have so many other things that they might need to deal with. But I know, it would help if the owners would communicate with the neighbors, or if we had, like you said, the public posting of the owner information. And I have said that when I have called the police, because it's 2 o'clock in the morning and the party's still going on, that I don't have the owner information. If I did, I would call the owner, because it's not a police emergency, in my opinion. But again, we do appreciate that you're taking the time to look at the situation, that you're taking the time to listen to us and making some changes and adopting things that might work in other communities as well. And we applaud you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Please take a look at the revised, because we do include some of those concerns that you have about limited liability corporations and the like. And any comments that you have, you can direct them to Kathy directly, or join us at our next meeting. But we appreciate you waiting, quite a bit of time here. We appreciate it. And we do have someone remotely. I see a hand raised.
Jan, is that the first name? I'm just
That's right.
assuming. Okay.
That's
hi.
right. My name's Jan Sperance, and I actually am a neighbor of Diane, so hi, Diane.
Welcome, Jan.
Hi. I just wanted to piggyback what Diane had to say. I have owned my house since 1998. I live here full time. The opposite side of my street on Tanglewood, there are 6 Airbnbs, possibly a 7th. I'm not aware of the operation of that house. But I just want to focus a little bit on the parking portion of the document. We have no sidewalks on Webster, Tanglewood, Carver, that whole area that is off of Standish. And because there are more and more Airbnbs, the excess parking ends up being on our street, and our street is passable by 1 car only at a time. And so more cars are parking on now both sides of the street, which narrows the pathway for emergency vehicles or any vehicles of any type, including our own and delivery. So, and also people who live across from the Airbnbs have difficulty backing their cars out when there are double sets of cars on a street. So I just want to ask about the public posting of owner information so that we who live there full-time can just call the owners and indicate to them that there is parking that is just going all the way down the street, multiple sides of the street, and perhaps still from 11 p.m. to 7 in the morning. It's a safety concern for us. And I feel very odd, like Diane said, calling the police, but it's a lot of traffic congestion, and it's really traffic safety at this point for those of us, many of us that walk down those streets around the area to the beach and back again. So I would appreciate it if you would take that into consideration with this document that you put so much time into. So I think that's the end of my public comment.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you
Thank you, Jan.
joining us, Jan. Thank you. So we've got a couple of comments here that we might want to tighten up.
I think it's unfortunate when you happen to have a grouping of Airbnbs. It's not like you just have like two or three cars parking in front of one and you can kind of easily go around. It's like if it ends up being that row, and especially if it happens to be properties that have a larger number of bedrooms, it compounds the problem. It's not just one little area where, I can just go around, so.
But parking on the street overnight,
Was never allowed, but we didn't define what overnight was. And we're trying to define the overnight and kind of matching that with the quiet hours.
right, the 11 to 7.
Yep. Yep.
So we are hoping to address a part of that, yeah. Ms. Britta?
I would just, the comment that the resident made about if someone buys a property for the sole purpose of investment, it's going to be rented all the time. And maybe this is a question for the town council. When does that become a commercial operation and not just a short-term rental? If it's well known that the property has been bought strictly for rental, is that commercialization? When does it flip to commercialization? Maybe he might have an opinion on that, because that's an interesting idea. That's an interesting concept, because clearly that may be happening in their neighborhood, where the house is used just, not owner-occupied, and it's used just to generate revenue. Is that now a hotel?
Wouldn't that be represented on the deed? If the deed came across as owned by Joe Smith, I mean, that's an individual, it's a private citizen, but if it came across as an LLC, you know that that's a
Right.
business.
But
if
can
it's
Joe
Joe Smith-
it's not
But
the question of,
You're right, he could be Joe Smith, but he's not saying LLC, he's still Joe Smith, a business, but he's not defining himself.
because when does Joe Smith move from Joe Smith owner to Joe Smith business owner?
Correct.
That's, I think,
I mean, that's hard to define.
it is hard to define.
Very hard to define.
And I think that's probably, but I think if we're going to have that huge paragraph on commercialization, that maybe the town council would have an opinion on that.
Just
Go ahead, Kathy.
the definition, I'm not sure then we're capturing all of that in what we have right here. The definition of owner, and this is something that other communities have done, it includes the LLC or a trust. Lots of times people, if it's a second home, they might put it in a limited liability corporation, or they might have it in some type of trust. The idea of how do you prevent someone, I mean, we're a traditional vacation community. People buy second homes, they use it themselves, and then they rent it out to get a little bit of income, that type of thing. And that's kind of been seen as, okay, we're comfortable with that as somewhat accessory to what's going on in the neighborhoods. But when like you say, Susan, if you're purchasing it and you're just using it for that, then it essentially is a motel. I know Ken has mentioned this. It's an unregulated motel in a residential zone.
Exactly what it is.
I don't
that
know
what it
how you
is?
target that. How do you target that and say, you can't do that? I've seen some weird other like proposals. I don't know whether it ever went into any of the short-term rentals, was that the owner has to stay overnight there a minimum number of nights per year. And it's like, that's an enforcement nightmare.
How do you enforce
for
that?
Mark.
You never could.
So I don't know how you do it, but that kind of gets you at the idea of you're not just buying it for investment, you have to stay there a certain number. So I don't know how you target and get that and be able to find the right language.
And I think that it's easy to get mixed up in that, trying to define it, because I think there are a number of houses that are inherited by people who do not live in them or ever stay in them, and just keep
good
renting
point.
them out. But they don't want to lose it from the family, and yet they do not live there. So I think it would be very hard to define the commercial purpose versus the sentimental purpose and that
Maybe
sort of
an
thing.
eligible unit is dwelling units used solely for short-term rentals. Maybe we throw that in there. But then again, how do you know?
Define it. I mean, how do you,
Well, you
how do you
know what a
enforce
short-term
that?
rental is.
But
Yeah,
how do
it's-
you?
it's enforcing it.
I'm
That's
sorry, I
difficult.
meant enforcement. How do you enforce that?
I
Kathy,
agree.
I just want to point out, under, 418.3 and eligible units, Will and I were chatting while everyone else was talking. And
Number 5.
number 5, I think that will hopefully eliminate 90% of what we're talking about. Ineligible units, dwelling units owned by a C Corp, S Corp, a nominee trust, a partnership real estate investment trust, or similar entity that engages in a primary investment activity. That's going to be 90% of what we're talking about here, that people are using this as a means. And it says it right here in our own, if this is what we adopt, it says that you can't do it.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, though, is similar entity or purpose, or person. Because it doesn't have to be one of these, it could
I
be a
think that's a
person.
question for the council, not
Could
here.
we put a similar entity and/or a similar entity or person that's engaged primarily, because it could be one single person, it doesn't have to be, that
Yeah,
might get to it,
That would do it.
just,
Individual.
Individual.
or individual, right?
Yeah.
Thank goodness for town council. Kathy, also your computer is doing shenanigans for the people at home who are trying to follow.
Yeah, he's not showing it at home.
Oh,
so
okay,
we're good.
sorry. All right.
Because, as you know, it's a very, very creative segment of the economy.
And I don't know whether you get to this through, and Mark's going to kill me, through the application, where it's an affidavit process, where when you put in the application, you say, somehow we need to know, or they need to, if they're
Attest,
lying,
right. They need to attest to the fact that
they
it
need to
isn't
attest
being
to it.
used in a way
They
that
may
would violate.
lie, but at least
the
you-
bylaw.
Right.
Madam Chair, can I follow up on one thing?
Yes, yeah.
So
Mr.
I want
Rubenstein?
to, I do sympathize with what the two members of the public have talked about in terms of feeling guilty about calling the police. All I can say with all due respect is call the police. That's it. So you have to kind of get the emotional side out and drive the rational side in. And the rational side is, in our town, the way this gets enforced when it comes to noise and parking, it is not, unfortunately, or very fortunately for him, Mr. Grills, it is the Yarmouth Police Department. There are no other mechanisms. I guess the state police, but let's not involve them. So I understand what you're saying, that you feel like they have enough to do, and that's a different conversation than the reality that you're living in. And the truth is, the only people that will help enforce this when it comes to noise and it comes to parking is the Yarmouth Police Department. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yeah, Mr. Grills.
A police report, an official police report actually helps me with enforcement. I have something to follow up on if I end up having to go to court with these people, which I've never had, not with short-term rentals anyway. If it comes to enforcement, I have that police report. That's the official document that, right, if you call me, it's just hearsay. I wasn't here. So it's helpful. It just helps me with enforcement.
And with the owner
Right.
as well. I mean,
Again, I've called the owners. I've not even had to write a violation notice.
But having the police report when you go to the owner,
yes.
oh, yeah,
Oh,
if
absolutely.
you put that
story.
in front of them.
It helps.
Yeah.
Oh, of
Yeah, they
course.
got a no rent list. I guess there's a no rent list, so they, if they cause trouble in a short-term rental, the owner reports them and they can't rent any more houses. So it's happened. It happened over in Yarmouthport, so it's pretty bad. They had a huge party.
Zero.
that?
It's like an Uber. When you get a
Yeah,
zero
Airbnb-
rating, they're not picking you up.
Yeah, you're kicked out. You can't be a tenant any longer, so.
Short-term rentals
That's good.
do have
That's good.
no rent lists where you're banned from that particular entity, so.
Last thing, Madam Chair, of all the places on the Cape, I can only imagine, I'm just going to imagine, so let's do it. That Provincetown must have the most of this stuff going on, right? In terms of neighbors on top of neighbors, noise, trash, parking. So surely, maybe there's an opportunity in the near future while we're going through this process, is maybe I can do it on my own time, because I don't want to take up of any more of Kathy's or Mark's. But you borrowed some really good stuff from P-Town. Maybe there's a conversation to be had with the P-Town Planning Board, or even one of the nice folks in the P-Town Police Department so that we can maybe have some information to help educate very nice neighbors in Yarmouth who feel a certain way. I'm guessing all those nice people in P-Town felt that way 5 years ago. But they don't feel that way anymore because there's been a way for the police department to explain, and maybe it would involve one of the lieutenants coming to one of our public hearings, when we're talking about this issue, so that everybody understands, like, it's okay to hear the lieutenant say it. Forget about us jokers. But if the lieutenant says, will you please call us so we can help you? I think that would help a lot of people maybe make that leap, besides what I just said about P-Town. Thank you, Madam
Well,
Chair.
I think Kathy has already suggested that we have in our file folders all of the background from Provincetown, from Falmouth, from all the towns that.
Yes.
And it's our responsibility as well to go through that.
Sure.
And pick out those pieces where we think we could strengthen this. I think the voice, with all due respect, Will, the voice of a police officer from Provincetown, I think.
I meant
She means
Yarmouth.
Yarmouth.
I meant
She means
Yarmouth, sorry.
Yarmouth.
I'm so sorry. That was me mixing all of my metaphors together.
Yarmouth
So
Police.
sorry.
There you go.
I meant lieutenant, one of the lieutenants or sergeants from the Yarmouth.
I thought it
PD.
was from P-Town.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
No, that's not a great use of their time, Madam Chair. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
so
I
sorry.
mean,
I didn't mean to
but
confuse
we
you.
understand that there are limited incidents so far. But the many voices that we're going to hear from this, I think, at the public hearing, when we go through this, perhaps we can invite a member of the police department to come and share with us their opinions and formally invite them to share with us what they know.
Mark and I have already talked about it, and he's actually talked to Kevin Lennon about getting together in a meeting and kind of talk about what's the process. So that's one of the other things that are kind of happening in the background.
Great, yeah, getting Chief Lennon involved would be great, okay. Any other discussion on this? And again, thank you very much for coming, we appreciate it.
Both of you.
And, yeah, thank you, Jen. Next item on our agenda are our minutes.
Minutes.
What fun.
I move the minutes of June 3rd, 2026 be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain. I wasn't at the last one.
Board of Appeals and Agenda, Kathy had sent us our emails on the ZBA. Any committee updates?
Just a quick wastewater committee update. And the good news is, as of this week, they'll be off of Route 28 for the summer.
Oh, good.
As far as wastewater, I can't answer for the gas work that was going on, which I believe is done at Four Corners, and some of the other work there on, right at the corner of Station Ave, and
It was water as well.
that was water as
Yeah,
well?
it was water
Okay.
as well.
Yeah, I can't
No
answer
water
for
on
that,
Monday.
but just a quick summary of where everything's at. Contract one, which is the wastewater facility, that's moving on pace to be completed January 2028. We are not having a wastewater meeting in July, but we are having a tour, no date to be determined, and I've been asked to extend an invite to the planning board. If you'd like to be included, please let me know. They need to register the names, so they can't have 30 people at it, but they want to know if somebody wants to come to see where the process is at with building of the, great, so just let me know and I'll get everybody registered that wants to come. Great,
When
awesome.
is that, Ken? I'm sorry.
I don't know yet. I'll go through Joanne and Kathy for the date, as I don't know the date yet, but it's
I'd love
sometime
to
in
go.
July.
Definitely,
On
I'll
that,
go.
has the committee been able to secure this space for their future meetings yet?
That was one of the discussions at the last meeting that I was not able to attend, so,
They wanted a broader venue.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, the technology here is
technology, exactly.
really the key thing.
Contract two, which is east of Parkers River, that contract will be completed at the end of June, the month we're in. Contract three, which is, they both say east, one's west and one's east. Both of them to be completed up to, let's see, contract one was Long Pond to North Main, that's done. And then contract three, which is, it's also done. All that contract now is complete. I'm just looking what the addresses are. North Main Street's intersection is complete from that standpoint. South Shore Drive is completed and repaved. I don't know if anyone's driven down South Shore Drive. It looks much better. They'll be done up to West Yarmouth Road, and then that's where they're stopping this week. They are going to be working on Higgins Kroll going down to where Joshua Baker, where they've already put a main in on Joshua Baker, so stay away from Higgins Crawl. So they've made huge progress. In the fall, they'll be picking up from West Yarmouth Road, heading towards the Barnstable line. That's the goal. What they are gonna be doing over the summertime, which won't be on 28, is working on finishing up all the pump stations, and I don't know if anyone's noticed the work done on the Long Pond one, right by the Pancake Man, but they've done landscaping to it now. It looks much better than it did a month ago. That's their goal this summer, is to get the pump stations that have been done, get electricity to them, natural gas to them, and get them all landscaped. So by the end of the summer, that's the goal, to have all that stuff done.
Great, thank you.
Chair?
Mr. Rubenstein.
Yes, the CEDC had its second meeting on Monday, the 15th. We approved a couple of things. The first one was, I'd have to get the exact amount, Kathy, so forgive me.
74,000.
Okay, thanks. 74,000 was approved to help support, how would you describe it? I think you can describe it better
repairs
than
to
me.
the best.
Oh, no, that. Oh, yeah, well, I was going to get to that. I meant
Oh,
the other
that's
stuff.
what I meant.
Okay, well, I meant for what you and Joanne came
Fif-
for.
50,000.
Was 50, right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that. So 74,000, in addition to taking a very large hunk of money out of the Bass River Boardwalk naming
funds.
fund, which is over 150. Well, 100,000 of that plus 74 from the CEDC will go to repairing all the pilings that got smashed up. And it wasn't even the big blizzard, it was the storm before that
Yeah, the week before.
that had the crazy surge, and then everything just got smashed to bits. So the reason why we wanted to get that done now is because they have someone ready to go, and it hopefully will be done in 60 days.
Oh, good. Great.
Will it be done in 60 days? Don't know. But the good news is it's going to start, I would assume, as soon as soon. Because it's been signed and the money is there, and it doesn't require a whole bunch of process. Then there was 50,000 approved, and can you help differentiate between what we approved for that? That will help support this work.
Yes, economic development.
Yeah, that came out of the economic development bucket to help Kathy
And
do
you
her thing.
guys.
With all, huh?
And you guys.
And us, ultimately, with the consultant process and streamlining and all those good things. Yeah, I just would give a lot of, I would just like to give a lot of acknowledgement to Megan Eldridge for resuscitating not just the committee, but the effort behind it. That is, it reaches into a lot of different parts of our community. Like I just mentioned, everything from natural resources to the work of the planning board to the work of other, private businesses, and as well as the chamber. There's a lot going on there, and it is getting done. And now there's a committee with which to help manifest it. So more to come, but those are the two things that got decided on Monday. Thank you, Madam Chair.
As a follow-up to that, because Kathy and I were at that meeting on Monday, just a public comment on, I was surprised that in these buckets, the administration account balance, the public improvement, the special events, the marketing, the economic development, there's a lot of money.
$500 million, I think, roughly.
I'm thinking much more than that. I mean, the marketing account balance is 227 for the coming year. And economic development is around 134,000. So I think what they're aggressively trying to do is move forward on capturing projects that need some help. And we were a perfect candidate for it, so Kathy, your timing was exactly right. And so as part of the economic development bucket, if you will, we were able to secure a really nice piece of that. So I'm really happy that the committee's back, and clearly with Megan at the
Oh,
head
the
of
wheel,
it,
yes.
I think it's going to move forward. That committee's been dormant for way too long,
Long time.
way too long.
And as I should also add, there's still room for at least 2 more members. So if you know anybody from the general public that might be interested in supporting the work of the committee, we definitely have room for more members. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Any other committee updates? Deirdre?
We did have the Housing Committee meeting, and a big part of it was the habitat development, and that I think we've covered, and also the a rent approval. update at Captain Gladcliffe and the Affordable Housing Trust put in an application for more community preservation funds. The Housing Authority is once again considering another RFP for Forest Road. They're still trying to figure a way to work around that. And then the Affordable Housing Trust is progressing on a couple of the sites on Route 28 that we've talked about, the mixed-use developments that are, they're sort of languishing until there is sewer.
Oh, yeah.
But they're moving ahead. And I think that those are the basic things that were covered.
Great. Tom, anything?
No.
Okay. Staff updates, Kath?
Yeah, I think the only thing I want to talk very briefly about, I don't know, do I have it here? Hang on. Is the LCP and our annual review. I had a good conversation with Megan today, and she is fabulous, and I'm very glad she came to the town of Yarmouth. Brought a lot of good horsepower, which we really needed, so it was great. But one of the things we had talked about is when we're going to be doing our annual updates, and I think it would be great if we could do it based on a calendar year. So I've developed this matrix that shows all the different actions, identifies the time frame, but I also put in the different years. So when we say something's ongoing from ongoing to 3, that means it's happening in the first, second, and third year of the plan. And you can see that here. You can't see it in this tiny little thing, but these are all the years, and this is kind of highlighting the years with which we're going to be working on those. And then obviously the responsible parties in the funding, but then we can write in, all the staff can write in the updates to it. Because it's a spreadsheet, you kind of need to have a separate thing for links. Might be good to have, we completed the short-term rental study this year, and the planning board used it to work on blah, 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 and then you can have a link to the short-term rental. So this is something that we're going to need a lot of input from town staff, because everybody's working on their own thing, and everyone kind of has a little idea, but not everything. But this might be something we can just put up on Teams. People can go in and keep it over the next, maybe we'll do it up in like the fall or something, and people can fill in things like, what do you think you're going to have done by the end of the year? And then at the end, they can just really quickly finalize it, and then it'll be something that would be done in January for you guys to look at, and then we could present to the select board in January before annual town meeting. February, March starts really hitting them with very heavy agendas.
Can they utilize this now, Kathy?
Not yet, no.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I've done it all up, and then what's nice is you can hide these columns, and then we'll do the next year, will be the next columns. But we'll always have that background of what did we accomplish in 26, 27, 20, as we're continuing through the years.
So things like the action that we took to go to CEDC,
Yep.
the Affordable Housing Trust, as soon as this is up and active, you can enter that as to a status, and then keep updating it. And then we would have something year-end from hopefully everyone who's got something going to report out on.
Yeah, at least for the year one.
Yeah.
And if you're not working on it, that's okay.
Yeah.
Have not gotten to that yet. We're going to work on it, and also giving an idea of like, we're working on it, but we're also going to be continuing to work on it in 2027 to give people an idea of the timelines on these things as well. So that's something, making progress. I didn't want us to forget about it, but we do need to look at it annually.
We are in charge of that.
And I think it's a good opportunity for the town staff to tout all the great work
Yeah,
that they're doing.
exactly.
And for the community
In one
and the
place.
public to hear about it.
Yeah.
Right?
And could this be a document that is public?
It will eventually be when it gets presented to the select board at our annual, it would be in the packet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep. And we'll give a little presentation. It would be great if a bunch of different, all the different staff could come. If anybody had any questions, they might be able to answer that. Because this is going to be not a super detailed review, but it just kind of give you an idea of the status of the project, but not the deep details of the project.
Okay, anything else?
Nope. I'm sorry. Hazard mitigation plan, FEMA came back with some revisions that they wanted. We're coordinating with the Cape Cod Commission and resubmitting that to them. Hopefully that'll be something that they'll approve, and we can get that to the select board for adoption in the near future. So that's moving along as well. And then I just want to let people know about the Revolutionary War Monument has been installed at the Fred Thatcher playground, and we are having a dedication ceremony and a whole celebration this Saturday, June 20th, from 10 to 3.
This Saturday?
Don't drive there.
Don't drive there, thank you. Shuttles,
You walk or take your.
take a shuttle from the DY
balloon.
Intermediate School.
Oh, there is going to be a shuttle from
There's
there?
going to be shuttles, yep. But there's going to have like a live encampment, family-friendly events. There's going to have some music, and then they're also going to, I think, go up to the ancient cemetery at one point at 11 o'clock. So there's a lot of great things that are going to be happening.
And that's all on the town website, all the details there? Oh,
I've seen general information. This is a great flyer that I pulled off of our ComDev
There's quite a,
bulletin board.
Going on.
there's quite a bit of signage up on the 6A area.
Oh, yeah. 6A has the big flags.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just don't know what the time,
Oh, it's 10.
10 to 2.
10 to 3.
3.
10 to
10 to
3.
3? Okay,
10, I think 10:30 is the dedication.
okay.
I'm just hoping there's, something on the Yarmouth website.
Yeah.
There's something there.
I didn't look. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no, that's
because I
okay.
had this.
That's okay. It's my job to go look. Anything else, Kath?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. We have a couple of upcoming meetings, July 1st and July 15th. Anything coming up regulatory for us, Kathy, on either of those?
No, nothing that I know of.
One thing I might mention is that I may not be available on July 1st, and
I will definitely, unfortunately,
you
not
are
be.
definitely not
First night of
available because of camp. So quorum will be important. Just keep that in mind if you can.
Who's going to be in charge, Madam Chair?
Oh, God, Ken.
Who's?
Ken?
Congrats.
I was going down the line.
I was going to say.
Chair, vice chair. Oh, yeah, Ken.
Congratulations.
But I'll know sooner as we get closer
Okay.
to it.
That'll be fun.
Be a quick meeting.
Streamlined.
I like your thinking, Ken. I like your
Right?
thinking.
We're streamlining everything, including
right.
the meetings.
Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There we go. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Anytime.
Recording stopped.
Quick question. Okay.